There comes a time in every man's life when he needs something special. That special thing is a shed. I think it usually hits when you're about, well, I'm 47, and I think I'm perhaps 2 years past my due date to have a hankering for a shed. If you don't know, a shed is a standalone building that sits in your garden. I mention that because you don't see many sheds out here in Japan. And in fact, I don't actually have a shed. The nearest thing I have is what I'm sitting in right now, which is my younger daughter's old bedroom, which is a 4.5 mat size room, which is about kind of the smallest size room you can get. It's just about big enough to fit a single bed in, or maybe 2 single beds in. Anyway, this has now been commandeered as my, well, we could be pretentious and call it work studio or home office. What is it? Soho, small office, home office, whatever. I prefer to think of it more as a sort of shed. It's a shed substitute, a place where a bloke can go and where his wife won't bother him, and he can put pots of paint around and make a mess and generally be laddish without upsetting the delicate feminine balance of the rest of the house. Something like that. Anyway, so you maybe can see behind me is a bookcase with a half empty bookcase, or actually mostly empty bookcase with to be read books, and there's a lot of bare walls around here. I intend to fill them with, if not my artwork, somebody's artwork. I've got on the floor, I've got a Edward Hopper picture that I picked up from IKEA years ago that's been hiding a hole in the wall downstairs, and anyway, I've commandeered it and brought it upstairs. So here I am in my shed or well-lit bunker on the second floor. So anyway, I may use this place to paint and possibly do some recordings, of which this is one. So that's exciting, isn't it? Anyway, this happened because this room was full of junk, and we finally got rid of 3 mattresses that were stacked up here. So there's now a bit of space. So watch this space. Yeah, so that happened this week. Other things, more interesting things, well, actually not that interesting. I had a lot of rewriting work to do. Although I make most of my money from teaching English, there is an element of sort of almost journalistic work. It's a bit like the Yomiuri Shimbun when I worked there, rewriting other people's work. Luckily or unluckily, there's a lot of work for native speakers, because Japanese often hire Japanese translators to translate into English, from Japanese into English, which is, if you've ever done translation, is really hard to do if you're not a native speaker. They really should hire native speakers, like native English speakers who are good at Japanese. I guess there's not that many of them, or perhaps they're too expensive. So as a result, I get sort of fairly well written but slightly odd sounding translations because they're translated by native Japanese speakers, and my job is to clean up the English. And that's a nice little earner. But I had loads of work about rewriting, probably about 100 pages of stuff about touristy stuff for Nagano. Rather worthy but dull stuff. But anyway, I finally finished the last 2 files of 10 files that I've had. That happened this week. Also this week we had our first lesson for new kindergarten year 1, so these are 3-year-olds, teaching English to them once a week, and it's their first time to be away from mummy. So amazingly they didn't cry. We had 8 of them for 45 minutes away from their mummies. That's always fun. Requires a lot of preparation and patience. So that happened. What else did I do this week? I met an Englishman who came out to Abikan. His name is Matt. I seem to have a habit of meeting Englishmen named Matt. His business card says he's a wealth advisor. He's a financial advisor. Because I'm trying to get my pensions and stuff sorted out, because as I'm 47, I thought it would be a good idea to actually figure out what I'm doing and tax efficiency and all that sort of nonsense. You have to be a bit careful with financial advisors because they're selling you a product. But he did a very good soft sell, didn't really sell me anything, and just chatted about Leicester City and football and things, and established a connection. And then, he told me a few useful things. By the way, if you're British and you're out here and you're not paying national insurance from back home, perhaps you should, because it's quite a good deal. If you pay your minimum payments or whatever, it's £790 a year, close to £800 a year you pay, and then that will guarantee, if you pay into it for however many years, 20, 25 years, 40 years, I forget, but it will guarantee you £160 a week when you retire, which, if you think about it, £800 a year, but guaranteeing you £160 a week is a good deal. It's a no-brainer. So that, even just that bit of advice will save me money. Anyway, the funny thing is, he works for a company called something or other Akuma, which is, I don't know, some meaningless, sounds like accumulate, I suppose, in English, but in Japanese, Akuma means evil spirit. They might want to think about changing their name, but anyway, that happened. What else did I do? And I've been working on 3 textbooks for a rival school, not really rival school, but a neighbouring school. And I finally finished those and have uploaded them to Amazon. And if they're approved by the boss at Smile Kids International, then they'll be the set texts for that school, which means every year they'll order them from me, from Amazon, and I'll get a little cut. That's nice wealth creation, not very much, but an asset, which is something I'd like to build up. More of my assets. I keep making that joke, I'm sorry. What else? Yes, and of course the big news yesterday was my youngest daughter graduated from elementary school in Japan, so she's 12. They graduate in, what month is it, March? The start of the school year is April. So she's graduated, and from April she'll be a junior high school kid. Quite emotional to see that I'm now no longer the father of an elementary school kid. that door has closed, and but anyway, not about me, but I mean, it's nice to see her developing and becoming a young lady, although bittersweet, as these things are. The ceremony was rather tedious. They practice it for like a month, and they have very orchestrated bowing, where everyone has to stand up and bow and sit down, and they have very long-winded, dull speeches. We were sat there for 3 hours, I think, on a seat. 3 hours of formal Japanese talk is pretty tedious. They have this thing where the kids stand up individually and shout at the audience. It's really strange. And then everybody starts crying because it's so emotional. It's funny because they tried to... Oh, should I bother telling this story? Oh, okay. They tried to... they practice these things for about a month, and then... So they announced, and here come, at the beginning of the ceremony, here come the children, everybody, let's clap. And so everybody started clapping, and they have this music playing, da 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 da. Nothing happened. They got the timings wrong. They were all still back in their classroom, so the deputy headmaster had to run out and find the kids. After all this preparation and military precision, they got the wrong time. I thought that was rather amusing, but a little bit of humanity injected at the beginning before the enforced crying and emotion of the manufactured emotion. But there you are. It was what it was, and so now she's graduated. So, by the way, yeah. So I thought I might in this room that used to be Emma's bedroom. I got her old guitar, her first electric guitar that she got, and she learned to play on. It was sort of like a half-size or three-quarter size electric guitar. It's pretty naff. But I was just picking around in it, and I've probably inherited it with this classroom. And I got thinking about when I first started playing the guitar, and that was, I had a teacher for a year or two called Ian, and I think he's think he's passed away. I think he died of cancer, I think it was. Anyway, but he was my first guitar teacher, and he used to listen. You'd go to his lesson and say, "I want to play this," and you'd bring a tape of something. I had a Rolling Stones song or whatever, and he would just listen to it. And after a couple of listens, he'd got it, and then he'd just transpose it into tablature, for guitar, and give you the notes and show you how to play it. So that's how I learnt to play some music. And one of the songs he's taught me, or the first songs he taught me, was "Love in Vain" by it's Robert Johnson, but the Rolling Stones arrangement of it, I think I can still just about remember it. So I thought I'd play that to you as a thank you for listening to me waffle on. Okay, let me just rearrange this camera. High tech that it isn't. Put it like that. Okay, so this is what I can remember of "Love in Vain" on my daughter's old guitar. Oof.